Who is Neltu Orejvank and how powerful is she? At first glance, you more than likely wouldn't be able to tell that Nelliel was an Espada, that she once belonged to the distinguished elite Arankars under the direct command of Lord Aizen. She was playing a game of infinite tag in which she would be chased by her two fractions, Pesce and Dondachaka, accompanied by their pet Hollow. But the truth behind her child form would later be revealed in their battle against Noitora. Nelliel was a former number 3 Espada from the previous generation of Espadas. It was revealed in Canfair Own World that she replaced Dordoni as number 3, a position which was granted to Tyr Haribel in the new generation of Espadas. Back when she held her position, she was partnered with Noitora in the search for Vastolores. Back then, numbers still denoted the strength of the Espadas, the number 3 Nelliel being superior to the number 8 Noitora. Noitora hated the idea of a woman being superior to a man in battle. This, combined with the fact that Nelliel looked down on his strength and philosophy, pushed him to partner with a former Espada, Zalaporograns, to engineer Nelliel's downfall. By the way, for a full breakdown of Zalaporo's story, you should read the Spirits Are Forever With You novel. They would lure Nelliel in by first attacking her Flaxions, and while she was emotionally unstable, they would use Zalaporo's illusion device to distract her and deal a blow to her head. This incident caused her to lose most of her powers and her body shrank. She also lost many of her memories, and this is how we got Kid Nell. Nelliel would temporarily regain this form in her battle against Noitora, but it was revealed in the Thousand Year Blood War arc that Kisuke Urahara made a bracelet for her, which allowed her to go back and forth between her adult and child forms. Nelliel would then go on to oversee Weikomundo alongside Grimjow and Haribel. In her child form, Nelliel can use super acceleration to launch herself at high speed, although this is used more for comedic effect, and her saliva has healing properties to some extent, which she would use to assist Dordoni's recovery. But most terrifying of all is her Serra Doble, which she can use in child form as well. Dordoni, after undergoing a full resurrection and was consistently overwhelming Ashikai Ichigo, released a Zero from his resurrection state, but Nelliel in child form was able to consume Dordoni's Zero and returned it with enough power to damage him, despite Dordoni's spiritual power being far above that of Nelliel's child form, to the extent that he could casually one-tap her with a bala. And of course, the Zero Doble is an example of a very disproportionate ability, whereas many fans believe that you must be relative in Ryatsu to every ability in order to contend with it. Some abilities work disproportionately and are able to work at a level far beyond the user's Ryatsu, the Serra Doble being one such ability. Nelliel regained her original form in the battle against Noitora. The character book tells us that Nell's Ryatsu was scattered earlier, but then she regained her original form. She was protecting Ichigo, having returned to herself, accompanied by titles such as the awakened power of the former Tres Espada. Pesce compared her spiritual pressure to what she possessed in her former days, and although this form didn't last long, she was able to do pretty well against Noitora, who had gotten stronger since the last time you saw her. Noitora unashamedly declaring superiority to his previous form, and yet Nelliel would go on to cut through Noitora's hero with her base sword, despite Noitora's reputation for possessing the hardest hero. Even Kenpachi required time to adjust to Noitora's hero before he could cut him. This would also mean that, disregarding spiritual pressure, a base Nelliel would have the attack potency to cut through the hero of any other Espada in their base forms. She would also showcase the physical strength and durability to catch Noitora's Zero before consuming it with her Zero Doble technique, and would then return it at greater power and speed, as this Zero Doble doubled all the properties of the Zero. But it should be noted that Noitora was also doing pretty well in this battle, as he tanked the increased attack and was shown to push Nelliel back in some instances. Even Ichigo was concerned that Nelliel was eventually losing, Nelliel even whipping out her Resurrection, something which he didn't want to use, a form waxing in spiritual power and physical strength. And with one toss of the Lanza Dorverde, she would rip through Noitora's blade and skin, although even then it should be considered that Nelliel still didn't want to kill Noitora. As a side note, before I proceed, it is worth noting that Nelliel likely possesses an aspect of death called lamentation. Concerning Nelliel's power, following the battle with Noitora, she's had some pretty interesting entrances in the Spirits Are Forever With You and the Canfair Own World novels and the Thousand Year Blood War arc. Now, I did mention that the Serra Doble is disproportionately powerful, and in the Spirits Are Forever With You novel, Roca Paramia was able to return Granray Ceros from Stian Grants, of course using her own copy of the Serra Doble, despite being in possession of less spiritual power than Nelliel. Stian Grants was the same monster whose base form surpassed Yame's Zero form. In terms of pure spiritual power, she was also able to return roughly half of a Zero fired from Ikone's third strongest form, an attack which was said to mean certain death for all of them if Nelliel along with Lel Toto did not intervene and consume the attack. In In her battle against Ikomikidomoe alongside Grimjaw and Haribel, her Lanza Dorverde pierced through all of the attacks in the area, even ripping through the water spout created by Dordoni's wind and Haribel's water mixed together, drilling through all their spiritual pressures and the space itself. Now, how does she compare to the other Canfairy Own-World Espadas? Alongside Haribel and the others, her fighting class was compared to that of a Vassal Lorde Arrancar. After being defeated by Ichigo, Grimjaw had eaten numerous hollows, increasing his power to such an extent that even Haribel thought that fighting him would be a risk to both their lives. Nelliel still believed that with her full might she could stop Grimjaw, and it's worth noting that these three hang out together and have seen each other fight. Nelliel and Haribel also noted that if Grimjaw went on a rampage in the world of the living, it was up to them to stop him. And upon dividing their forces given the situation in Rukongai, due to Ikomikidomoe's rampage, Haribel designated the task of handling Grimjaw to Nelliel, the same Grimjaw who was stronger than when he fought Ichigo. Upon encountering his nemesis in the Thousand Year Blood War arc, would release a surge of spiritual pressure. But despite his increased power, Nelliel was still confident that she could take him on. And after fighting alongside them, Charlotte Coolhorn, whose power had been magnified by Mayuri Kurotsuchi, noted that both Haribel and Nelliel were ahead of him by a similar degree, stating that they're both half a step stronger than him, which denotes similarity to their fighting strengths. It's not so much about them being equals as it is about the relativity among them. So that is the fighting class to which the Canfairy Own-World Nelliel belongs, with her base sword from back then being capable of cutting through Noitora's hero, her Lanza Dorverde competing with the power of the Resurrection Espadas from the Canfairy Own-World novel, and her Serra Doble being able to consume and return attacks, which contained spiritual energy beyond Yami's Zero form and Ulquirah's Segunda Etapa. And I've always liked her fighting style, which utilizes powerful martial arts kicks alongside her other abilities. If you guys want an Espada ranking videos including the Canfairy Own-World versions, like and subscribe. As for Nelliel 2 Oder Schwank, she's a very lovable character and her strength is nothing to laugh at.